Welcome to the PrimeSpan Podcast, where we talk about aging, mental health, and living well in the years that matters the most. Each week, we cut through the noise to focus on what actually helps you feel clearer, steadier, and more in control as you age. If you're navigating the second half of life or thinking ahead, you're in the right place. Let's get into it.
Welcome to PrimeSpan Podcast, where we believe that after 55, health is not just about living longer. It's about staying strong, clear, connected, and independent for the people and future that still needs you. Today, we're challenging one of the most established ideas about lighter life, retirement. For decades, retirement has been presented as the reward waiting at the end of a long career. You work hard, you save, you reach a certain age, then ideally, you stop working and begin enjoying the freedom you have earned. For many people, that transition is deeply positive. They gain time, flexibility, rest, and the opportunity to focus on relationship. They travel, and the interests that may have been postponed during their working years. Our guest today, Anne van Leynseele, believes retirement should not be treated as the only available model for the final third of life. What drew me to Anne's story is that she's not discussing reinvention from a distance. She has had to leave familiar identities, enter rooms where she has no longer the expert, and decide more than once that the life she had built was not the only life available to her. Anne has built a career at the edge of change. Her professional journey has included entertainment, digital media, corporate consulting, the Olympic Games, federal services, healthcare regulation, cannabis law, nonprofit, publishing, and cacao farming. A lot of exciting things over here. So we're going to have a lot of great conversation. And welcome to PrimeSpan Podcast.
Well, thank you, Adam. I'm happy to be here.
And of course, we have Ray, our co-pilot for all of our podcasts here. And just one of my first question, this is going to be a colorful conversation for today. Your career has moved through industries that appear very different from one another. When you look across those chapters, what is the most common thread, if you can share to our audience?
Yes, I get asked that quite often. And to me, the through line is story. I am fascinated by human beings and their stories. And I started in a storytelling industry, the entertainment industry, and all of my moves subsequent to that were tied to the idea of storytelling and even corporate communications, which is storytelling in a different way, and law, which is storytelling in different ways than how you educate your clients and educate the public. So I am really excited to share this latest storytelling where I share my experience of realizing that a typical American retirement was going to be very difficult and not satisfying for me. And I began to meet others, and it inspired me to document all of that in a short chapter book and workbook to help people solve some of the problems they may face after leaving their career.
I have a lot of things in mind because you have a lot of background. So I'll try to be disciplined with my questions, with some of my thoughts. I'm curious, I want to ask, what was your role surrounding the 2000 Olympic Summer Games? This is something that, because I live in LA and the Olympics is coming up in 2028. So I'm curious, what was your role back then?
Well, it's a lifetime story because when I was 10 years old, my parents took our whole family to Montreal, where we had my grandparents and several of my aunts and uncles had immigrated from Belgium after World War II. And so we went there to visit family and to participate in the 1976 Olympics, which was an exceptional Olympic Games. There were some big names that came and some big victories. And it was very exciting to be 10 and surrounded in this wonderful international environment. And that then led me to be very interested in the Olympics. We watched them every year. And I decided that I would love to live in a host city for the Olympic Games. And the opportunity presented itself when I worked for a digital media company in Seattle, Washington, that was part of a company that purchased an Australian office. And I asked if I could come over there and work with their digital media group. And since with the first digital media group in Seattle, I had taken 4 unprofitable and unhappy people to a group of 30 and $8 million in the first year I managed it. The Australia company welcomed me with open arms. So after 3 months there with that company, I had completed my objectives. And so you have to leave the country to take control of your own work visa. So I went and spent a few weeks in New Zealand just playing while I waited for them to process my work visa. And then I returned to Australia and consulted for some other companies, but under my own company name. And so that is how I got the opportunity to work on some projects for the Summer Games, the 2000 digital Summer Games.
Being in the entertainment and digital industry, digital media tech, what did that teach you about people and storytelling?
That the delivery mechanism will always change, but people will still feel the need to meet in person and to connect deeply with other human beings. No matter how much technology comes in, we still need to belong. And part of my starting preferment is to really build a community of people that either feel there's no way for them to retire or are struggling with retirement.
We have a lot of alignment to what we're doing, PrimeSpan, because that's similar. It is very aligned to the mission that comes to accessibility for all the people that doesn't know how to keep themselves healthy or how to age properly. That's one of our big priority. And in that way, what we've been trying to do is create a larger community where people are working towards the same health goals, working towards the same psychological health and all of those. I'm curious, why did you later pursue law?
Well, law was something that I have been curious about for a long time. In the entertainment industry, I love to read all the contracts and understand the nuances of contract. It took a long time for me to realize that you don't have to be a litigator. You don't have to go to court. You can actually do what's called transactional law, which is helping companies. I don't like to tear things down. I like to build things. And in corporate law, you're helping companies build stronger infrastructure. I do a lot of work with startups. And then after I left Washington, D.C., I was an attorney advisor under the Obama administration, the first Obama administration. I came back to Washington State, and along with Colorado, they were the first 2 states to do legal recreational marijuana. And my research showed that most of the lawyers that were looking to represent clients in the legal marijuana space were criminal lawyers. And I said, that's all wrong. They need transactional business lawyers. And so I jumped in. I went to a business-to-business meeting, and I was impressed. I realized this is the American dream. It's a brand new industry full of opportunity for people that have skills in a different capacity.
You mentioned about the lawyers that were involved back then. Why do you think that was the case?
Well, I just think they thought it was no big deal to transition from practicing criminal law to practicing corporate law. And it was hard for everybody in the beginning to get their head around there's no more threat of court. Yeah. Now it's all about compliance and regulatory compliance. And so within 16, 18 months, I represented a quarter of the legal marijuana industry in Washington state. So the clients saw it as well, that you didn't need a criminal lawyer anymore. You needed somebody that could help them understand the regulations.
And that is, later we're going to segue about your experience in the legal marijuana area. That was a fascinating time, especially how it led to now, and also the deregulation of other scheduled substances that has been for medical use, things that were misunderstood before. And you've reinvented yourself many times. When people say, I could never reinvent myself the way you did, what typical advice would be?
Well, I think that the question I always ask people when they say, I don't know, I'm not ready to do that, is to understand that a year from now, you're still going to be where you're going to be if you don't make a change. And if you start with small steps and experiment with what you envision your next step is, you don't have to jump in 100%. You can take small steps and really understand. I work with young people and people that are new in an industry. And my advice is always do many informational interviews. It's an art that seems to be lost. And I reteach the idea of an informational interview and really encourage them to talk about, well, what is it like doing the work that you do? And does that match my skills and interests and how I like to work? Do I prefer working alone or actually in a physical space? Do I like to work in small teams or be a part of a larger team? There are a lot of work style factors that people don't normally consider when they're making a career or a life transition.
It comes in with the courage and the commitment as well.
Well, and risk tolerance. There are a few people that have a firm grasp on how much risk they're comfortable with. There are ways that you can mitigate risk, but you have to really understand that changing anything, no matter how large or small, has a degree of risk.
Yes.
And there are that we do that are very risky that we don't that into our decisions. And I think that acknowledging risk and recognizing it, what it is and how we can minimize it in any way, or at least be eyes wide open about it, can help with fearing. I deal with a lot of people that fear retirement because they loved or love their career. And they just don't think they'll ever be happy doing something besides their career.
And just to add something about your point about risk tolerance, I think the other part there is the pain tolerance, your pain threshold to handle those as transitions or risks that you're going to take. Because that piece, that's a lot of people don't want to be uncomfortable.
That's true, Adam. The path of least resistance is baked into human nature.
That's what makes that's what separates people. Level of their tolerance to pain, people give up automatically. And they're so comfortable to what they know.
Yes.
You mentioned something about the retirement. So I want to ask you something here. You've spent several years as an attorney advisor with the Social Security Administration. What did that experience reveal about the human side of retirement?
Oh, it was terrifying.
Tell us, this is a segue.
Well, I routinely saw some of the devastating effects that retirement can have. We built retirement more than 90 years ago in the United States. It was created for people to have some supplemental income after age 65 at a time when most people, the vast majority of people, died before age 61. Mm-hmm. Brilliant piece of legislation because the money didn't become due for many people ever. But I wanted to just point out that it is now an antiquated model because it was built at a time when 70 to 80% of people worked in physical labor or agriculture. And now that ratio is exactly opposite on people that work in non-physical jobs. And so we don't need a rest when we retire. our lifespan has extended so extremely. And because now people are focused in and paying more attention to having a quality longevity, not just living a whole bunch of years, but living healthy and productive years, that they need to now figure out and build what that productive 20 to 30 years is going to be filled with. Because certainly the things that we used to do on lunch hours, evenings, weekends, and our 2 weeks of paid vacation a year, if you spread that over 7 days a week, it makes for a very thin existence and not something that is going to actually provide a quality of life that would inspire you to continue to live vibrantly and healthfully.
And when you started working in Social Security Administration, did you had that mindset already, or did you discover that? Tell us, when did you discover this mindset, or what was a pivotal moment when this wisdom appeared to you, or this wisdom occur?
Well, no, I did not have a preconceived notion about what my retirement was going to look like. And I still was thinking in terms of I will retire. That when I lived in Australia, I found called Port Douglas in the northeast corner of Australia that inspired me. I said, oh, this is the place I want to retire. There was a lot going on, but everybody knew each other. There were a lot of beautiful natural resources nearby, and intellectual pursuits and social engagement, all of the things that we now fully recognize contribute to it staying physically, mentally, and emotionally at our peak as we age. But I knew Australia was a little too far to have friends come and visit me. Friends and family. So I thought the big island of Hawaii is very similar in that culture. And they also have a very Asian sensibility about family and supporting elders and respecting wisdom of elders. And I liked that idea as well. So while I was at Social Security Administration, I was actively preparing to purchase my first home. I had roamed around the globe until I was in my early 40s. And when I left the Social Security Administration 4 years later, the first thing I did was buy a farm on the big island of Hawaii, a place I had never lived before, and doing something I had never done before. I've never even had a garden, and I'm now responsible for farming 6 acres of land. But the beauty of farming and farming on the Big Island is it's all year round. It requires physical activity. It requires problem solving constantly. And I have to engage with the community because I don't have all of the skills. So
Mhm.
I have a team of people that I work with on an ongoing and routine basis to both maintain and improve how we farm.
As I mentioned, this is going to take us in many angles because there's so many questions here that I have in mind. But I want to ask a follow-up question about your time in the Social Security Administration. I have one more area there that I want to ask your opinion. Because people until now, I don't think we both agree about the Social Security is an antiquated tool or process when it comes to retirement. And actually, soon to be the 401k is also going to go towards that too. What do you think? What psychological or social preparation is often missing, you think, for people that are trying to retire? And what do you think is the biggest gap that people are not understanding when it comes to retirement?
Well, Social Security was never intended to be your sole financial support. Three-pronged stool. So Social Security is a third of your retirement income, Personal savings and investment is the other third, and either a 401k or a Roth IRA that you can contribute to as you are working is the other third. With those three financial sources, you can build the stability, financial stability. And that's fantastic and essential.
Mhm.
But it's not the whole picture, because where I come in is not the financial side. I assume that all of that is taken care of. But in talking to a lot of financial planners, they get very discouraged because people bring in the same four things that they want to do in their retirement: spend more time with friends and family, volunteer, exercise and take care of their body, and travel. And again, I go back to, we did all four of those things while we worked a full-time job. Leaving a full-time job at minimum is 2,500 hours per year to fill in retirement. And if you're filling it with the same things that you used to do around your job, it leads to depression, loneliness, sedentary lifestyle, and the statistics, difficulties in marriage. Statistics on all of these things are very well researched and very well documented. The negative impact of those four topics alone, reportedly 67% of retirees report depression symptoms after leaving work. And if 2/3 of people suffered from depression when they bought a product, we would discontinue the product. The company would go out of business. Nobody would keep buying that product. So my argument is, why are we still using retirement when it is causing so much destruction on an individual basis? And so while I worked at Social Security Administration, realized all of this and started looking for an alternative. And there really wasn't anything, except a lot of people saying, well, you just have to adjust your mindset to accept and expect less. Your life should get smaller. You should fade into the background. You should step aside and let other people do everything. And you should not expect to be productive, achieving and accomplishing things. Even noted psychologists, they have developmental milestones from age 0 to age 60. And after age 60, the milestones are decline, physical deterioration, an introspective look at the past and what you accomplished in your life. It's all backward thinking. So I wrote a set of milestones because it didn't exist. And that was sort of the beginning of this concept that I later named preferment.
Yes. You created preferment as an alternative to the traditional retirement narrative. Can you share what does preferment mean to our listeners? Where did that word come from?
Preferment is actually a 15th century word that means to ascend to a higher position or a promotion, which is how I think people should start thinking about the final third of their life, is that this is the ultimate promotion into a position where you get to decide what the job description is, what your role is, and what all the rules and achievements are about. And it's your perfect opportunity to be selfish in a good way.
We're in so many ways, the way you're describing things is exactly how we view aging at PrimeSpan. And that's what we're promoting, because we're so against the idea that you should just accept the typical narrative of aging, where You're aging, you should be slow. You're aging, you should be forgetful. You're aging, you should be irrelevant. You're aging, you should, all of this narrative that is given to the older adults, where in other parts of the world, some older adults are revered, are at the higher caliber, higher level. To your point, you're elevated. You're much more elevated, and that's what we see. And that you shouldn't be discarded. For myself, I've been in the industry, aging service industry, for 20 years. That's one of the reasons why we built PrimeSpan, to provide that avenue for people to realize this is not the only way to age, because that's not the only narrative that you should have to your point, the third part of your life. Right? It's
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be. You're decreased to the lowest, to the thinnest portion of how people view you.
Yes.
And again, I commend the industry as well, because that's needed in some way. But people start accepting that's their trajectory. It should have never been that way. It should have never been that.
The negative stereotypes are reinforced all the time. I was delighted to travel to both Finland and to Japan and really put some thought and energy into understanding why and how life is different in those cultures. And both cultures had some distinct and common characteristics in that they really did foster a lot more intergenerational activities. The old people weren't segregated. There wasn't a senior center, there was a community center. In Finland, at the sauna, it was the best place to see that everyone of all ages participated in this social and cultural phenomenon. And it didn't matter. The young people talked to the old people, everybody mixed and mingled and talked about things that were important to them and were curious about what was important to other people. And this happened in every aspect of life that I experienced in Finland. I was there for their largest annual celebration, which is May Day. It's a big public holiday. And I participated in a lot of activities. And what I saw was this beautiful blending. And everyone was interested and engaged with each other. Similarly, in Japan, where multifamily homes are still very common. And it was delightful to see how that functioned for all age groups. The youngest, the great grandkids benefited from the great grandparents being around, and the grandchildren were delighted to capture the wisdom and knowledge and family history stories. The dynamic of breaking down the barriers that we have established in America. It's wonderful what PrimeSpan is doing to accomplish that and really start to change the entire model. I'm taking it one person at a time, but you're going at the institution and trying to give a replacement structure that encourages people to think in terms of you are in much more control of how much you get out of this beautiful span of time that's yours.
I have to say, Anne, there's, with all of the things that you're saying, with you, with us, we have coaches, everyone that we've met sees this, but it still is a difficult feat. It is, because to your point, that is so embedded in American culture, especially. We need more people to think that will be educated and move that forward. That mindset. Yeah. And also, one area that we are advocating is that generation, it needs to speak up and say, I don't want that option, the only option. I don't want one option. I want to stay at home. I want to be involved. I want to prolong my health span. I want to prolong my strength. When consumers, or I'll just use consumer as the best word, when consumer is the one dictating things is going to change.
Yes.
That's one of our hope. Hopefully through that, a lot more people will see that there's more options for this.
Yes. And I think that both our organizations strive to teach and educate on the best way to approach that and ways to mentor people. The wealth of knowledge is out there, but it takes a lot to sort through the good and the bad.
Correct.
It's just like the longevity market is right now focused on a quick solution. Take
Correct.
a pill, take a supplement, drink this beverage, eat these gummies, take this, I don't know, whatever. And you and I and Ray all know that there are three essentials, and that's doing, thinking, and feeling. We have to do those every single day to stay engaged. And isolation in today's society is really what we're fighting against. We're fighting against people thinking that they need to do it alone, when really that's the exact opposite of healthy aging. And the blue zones clarify that very, very strongly, that all of that data points to the people that are living 100 and beyond are deeply engaged in their town, in their village, in their culture, in their farm, in their lifestyle, in their family. And so the knowledge is there. And I think we're both bringing it to the world in a similar way. I love that.
Yes. And I want to hear your opinion on this, because you mentioned something about work and identity, because for many adults, work becomes part of who they introduce themselves. This is very common. And they measure progress, they receive recognition through that, and then they form relationships. Sometimes that's the only relationship circle that they even have. And that's how they view the understanding of their place in the world. From what you've seen, from your opinion, what happens when that identity disappears? And why do you think work and identity become so closely connected?
Well, I think that we're reinforced constantly by society that those achievements define our value in the world. And the perfect opportunity, retirement and losing your identity, is like falling off a cliff. And if you don't prepare, it's a long way back up to the cliff. And what I encourage and what I teach is, let's do this before you leave your work, so that you can figure out which parts of yourself align most closely with your values, and what do you want to take with you, and what do you want to leave behind. And what comes out of that is an identity based on who you are rather than what you do, which is much more sustainable and adaptable as we lose capacities. Because reality is, as we age, we are going to lose capacity, but we need to practice and rehearse adapting as we lose capacities to maintain. And if that identity is firmly grounded in the future, rather than I used to be a doctor, I used to be an artist, there are all these opportunities to redefine yourself as to a deeper, meaningful identity that can cover many activities and facets of your life, rather than just I do this because I was a that.
Do you find any difference between about the gender differences and how they work through this, and also leaders and non-leadership people when they exit their careers? Do you find any differences?
Yes. Well, first of all, not surprisingly, women are much more open to being coached in this, which is a deeply personal and vulnerable exploration. You have to let go of your ego to really discover and rebuild who you are and how you're going to function for the next 20 to 30 years. And so it's why I generally do market to high achieving women, because that is easiest to convert, the easiest to get to commit. I'm looking for people that are curious, coachable, and committed. So those are the three qualifiers. Gender doesn't matter. And I have worked, the most successful men that I've worked with are partners of people that are doing it. Women or the men that are already committed to doing it, and they're the partners, and they come along because they see all the positive changes and they don't want to be left behind.
Very fascinating. Ray, I know you're gearing up for a question. I want to make sure I pause here before I continue. I can go in many avenues.
Thank you, Joanne. Thank you for that wonderful introduction and sharing more about what the Alzheimer's Association does. I think the purpose of this is, like you said, to educate people and bring them awareness of the resources that are available, and working with families and residents who have unfortunately suffered from this disease. I think there's a lot to take away from everything that you're sharing, and just hearing it from someone with as much impact as you've made through the association. Just thank you so much for sharing, and I'm looking forward to learning more myself. But I think our goal at PrimeSpan is also to educate people and just bring a...
Well, I am a husband-free and child-free by choice woman. And so I have mentored probably hundreds of young people from when I was very young until still actively engaged in mentoring young people. And a lot of them are in life transitions, whether they're transitioning from high school to college. I do a lot of that application support work, or they're transitioning from undergrad to graduate school. I do a lot of work with those. I'm interested in this, but I don't know what the careers look like. And then I look at also people that are later in life that are needing to go back to school or needing to get some additional training to transition to a parallel career or a totally different career. And through all of those experiences, I have learned, and I believe that's what's missing. We just have so checked a box when it comes to, well, I'm retiring, I've got all the money stuff figured out, and I'll figure out the rest once I'm retired, rather than doing what we always do in life transitions. You would never say, okay, I'm going to move to a new city, and so I'm going to quit my job, and then I'll figure out what city I want to move to and what career they have, new job they might have there for me. We would never in a million years do that. Never. So why do we do this with retirement? And I really just think we're brainwashed. I just think that we are accepting what our grandparents did, what our parents did without question. And that's so unlike those generations. I am the first year of Gen X. I am 1965 born, and that is the very first year of Gen X. And Gen X is earmarked as the generation that is questioning all of these things that have been taboo. And along with several of the things that other Gen Xers are covering, menopause, mental health, mortality, and there's an ascendant. I want to throw retirement on the pile and say, we shouldn't even question whether we should keep retirement. We need to evolve it to better reflect how long we're living, how healthful we are, the kinds of careers we've lived through, and so what we actually want from retirement. Because Netflix, naps, football don't work for most people now. That we want more. We want to be hiking. We want to work on trail conservation. We have passions that can take so many different forms. And so I'm excited to be part of that change. Did that answer your question, Ray?
Yes, thank you so much. I think our listeners will have a lot to take away from this episode and your knowledge. And you and Adam are great storytellers. I think people will be captivated by this conversation.
Thank you.
And I want to ask you, I want to segue us to a little bit, because you mentioned earlier about the farm that you purchased in the Big Island of Hawaii. And how did an attorney working in a highly regulated industry, become a cacao farmer. That is, you're taking your journey as I'm listening to your journey. You're talking about storytelling. You are absolutely a great storyteller, as Alison mentioned. But the transitions on different avenues of your life is fascinating. The way I see it is you're always reinventing yourself. But from an attorney to a cacao farmer, tell us a little bit more about that. What made the switch? And also, when did Hawaii first become part of? Why did you choose Hawaii?
Well, I chose Hawaii, as I mentioned, because my Australia experience and realizing that I wanted certain things about where I spent my retirement. I wanted to be physically active every day, so the weather had to be amenable. I wanted to be engaged in a culture because I don't have a husband or a spouse to be with every day. So I have to make the effort to get out every day or have somebody over every day. And I haven't had anybody refuse an invitation to come to the big island of Hawaii yet. And I doubt that will happen as I age. Hey, why don't you come visit me?
I'll volunteer.
Well, I would love to have you, Adam. And then the beauty is we can always work together on the farm and teach people things about farming. But back to serious, it is a very serious question that you asked. That the transitions in my life were always intentional and well thought out and well planned. I didn't just jump, but I do tune in and pay attention to opportunities. When I was working at the Digital Media Group in Seattle, Washington, I loved what I had done and how I had molded this agency. We wrote the first app on planet Earth on a Motorola Palm Pilot. We did the first live webcast for Porsche USA at the Le Mans race in France. We were at the bleeding edge of doing high-tech things that we all take for granted now. But once it's all set and settled, I'm done. I like to mold and create and build. And so as with recreational marijuana, once the big law firms, I remember I worked at a large law firm while I went to law school. And the attorneys that I worked with and mentored me through that whole experience, when I started doing cannabis law, they didn't even feel comfortable talking to me about it. I could not find a mentor that would help me in cannabis law because it was too dangerous. It was too high risk. And so I went through a really harsh, my first book is all about the fact that my law partner stole from our company for 2 years. And when I discovered that had happened, he threatened to have me killed, and which happens all the time in the cannabis industry, by the way. And so it wasn't an idle threat. And so I strapped on a bulletproof vest at the recommendation of the detective, and I wrote a book about it. Because the reality is that we have to consider that anytime we are accepting the status quo and accepting things at face value, we could be wrong. And I accepted that a lawyer could never do something like that. Well, I was wrong. But making mistakes are just an opportunity to learn. And so what I'm hoping is that people will learn about the mistakes that other people have made in not preparing for their life. Financial preparations are fantastic. And as I said, very necessary. But when you're making a major life change, you always go through research, consideration, some self-assessment, writing down what your priorities are, pros and cons of different choices. We need to go through that process before we retire so that we can happily leave our work and know that we have a vision that will last us 20 or 30 years.
It makes a lot of sense about the transition. And when you moved to Hawaii and you said, I'm going to explore cacao farming, what drew you towards cacao farming to begin with?
Well, I bought a farm with chocolate trees on it. It's that simple. I knew I wanted to do farming, and I fell in love with the cacao trees. They were fascinating. They have to be harvested every month, all year round. So we numbered them and we tracked how they are cared for. We learned, we figured it out. We were having our cacao. There's many steps to processing cacao, and we were having our cacao processed by a woman who said, "Your cacao is amazing. I've always wanted to enter this global competition it's called the Cacao of Excellence. And would you be willing to join me in entering this?" And I said, "Yes, of course. What do I do? How can I help?" And so we did. In 2019, we won the Global Gold Award for Cacao of Excellence for the Pacific Rim. So the whole Pacific region, we won the best of the best. And it caused me to take a deep dive because I love a steep learning curve. So I took a deep dive into understanding more about cacao. And I realized that we're really missing a lot of the value of this very complex food source when we pair it with sugar, because sugar hides a lot of the tastes. And so I wrote a cookbook that's my second book, called Savor Your Chocolate, that is all about eating cacao as a seasoning. I jokingly say chocolate is the new sriracha.
I love that.
So cacao farming is just one aspect of the farm here. And it's fascinating and I love it. And it's just that personal thing that I have of being open to new, being curious, being excited, being interested, finding out more about people, about places, about things. We had a huge learning curve. We just went through a hurricane in Hawaii, and I had only ever experienced a hurricane when I was on the East Coast in Washington, D.C., and it missed us. So I didn't get to actually live through one. Life is fascinating. The world is amazing. And we have so much easier access. My mom used to have to take me to the library every week because I would run out of books and I would want to look things up. So it's really great that we have all sorts of new ways to engage and research with topics.
And when someone reads the book, Savor Your Chocolate, what do you want readers to experience through that book?
I want them to understand more about what a beautiful, amazing, magical fruit it is, and how much care and attention and love it takes to make a really good chocolate. That in between the recipes are stories about the farm and how it's processed and the qualities of chocolate. I have charts that talk about why certain foods pair better with chocolate, like carrots. Carrots are amazing. I have a chocolate sauce that I make that's a savory, it's miso and chocolate and soy sauce and butter. And it is amazing on roasted vegetables and grilled meats. And people are blown away. They're like, this is insane. It's like, yep, it's delicious. So again, it's curiosity, it's excitement, it's interest, it's engaging. It's about meeting the world with an attitude of, okay, what's next?
The food is such a powerful topic in the way you're describing it, because I want to know your opinion about what do you think about how are food, identity, and family stories connected?
I own the URL called Flavor of the Hand. And I have this vision when I'm actually retired or in preferment full time.
Yes, correct. Preferment.
To develop and help people capture their family recipes. I worked with a young man. He was a grandson of an Armenian woman, and his grandmother was Armenian, and she had nothing written down. And he said, how do I do this? And I said, videotape on your phone and have her talk through things. And if she pours the spice into her hand, measure it out, put it in a teaspoon and measure it out and write down the recipe and capture this stuff, because you will miss it when she's gone. And so I have this idea. And then Padma Lakshmi did a wonderful series about this, where she went to families and said, what's the secret? And how do you record that and capture that? And I think Andrew Zimmern does some work with that as well, another big chef personality. So it is an idea that's out there, but I also agree with you that it is an essential part of family history. We gather around food. And it is important that we return to caring about the food that we're putting into our bodies. I love this farm to table movement is catching on everywhere. I love that schools are teaching kids, let's grow some things. I live in a very suburban place on the mainland in Edmonds, Washington. And I love that the middle school there's some teacher has these standing carts that just have some seeds growing in there to teach people. You put the seed in the ground and you take care of it and it makes food. It's miraculous.
I love your project later on down the line. If ever down the line, we would love to contribute to that, because these are things that it's a form of memoirs for people, where people can pass along traditions and stories, because food are typically tied with stories and traditions and special memories. And
Yes.
The current generations that are entering their 70s, 80s, these are still people that cook food.
I know.
Delicious food, actually.
Amazing stuff. I would love to do a collaboration with your group of people and talk with them about, let's get a recipe from each of you and put together a PrimeSpan recipe book. Because I have a recipe book designer, I own a publishing company. We could put it all together. It'd be fun. Because whole foods is where we need to return.
Correct.
We need to go back to eating whole food instead of ultra processed.
Correct. And the science already says how much damage ultra processed food does to our body. And to your point, I'm curious with the recipe, is there a recipe or food memory in the book that carries a personal story for you?
Oh, almost every single one. And I tell a little story. There's a little story introduction to almost every single recipe in the Savor Your Chocolate book. It says, this is why I'm putting this here. This is why it's important to me. This is why it's important to you. And I encourage and teach people along the way how they can decide how to add chocolate to their favorite recipes. They don't have to make my recipes. They just need to learn the theory of how unsweetened chocolate. So cacao nibs, cocoa powder, 100% chocolate. And I do a cacao extract and I do a cacao bitters, all of those things. But yeah, it can be as basic as adding cocoa powder to a salad dressing. Amazing how much it changes, and it's delicious.
It is. I agree with you, because in the Latin culture, and particularly Mexico, mole is made of cacao primarily, and different type of beans is mixed, and they don't mix it with sugar. It is.
Mesoamericans were the one who discovered how to process cacao.
Correct.
And I'll give a little shout out. I'm going for the first time to the Portland Chocolate Festival. It's the Portland Craft Chocolate Festival on October 3rd. So if anybody's around, look for me.
Yes, absolutely. Make sure you stop by at Anne's area. And you also provide legal leadership to nonprofit organizations focused on young people and better aging at home. How does that service fit into your vision of later life? You have a very wide view of things, but I'm curious about this area.
I have long been attached to kids that graduate out of the foster care system. I can't imagine at 18 suddenly not having somebody that had your back. I have always been very strong and been able to take risks, because I knew that if anything went very sideways, my family was standing behind me. And so I have spent a lot of time and energy and donated into causes that support foster children, because way too many of them wind up homeless and lost. The other cause that I'm involved in right now that I really love is called Adaptable House Project, which is an organization that is bringing some patented projects that aging in place, but they're beautiful and they're adaptable so that you don't have to be forced into a wheelchair. But there's a 3-tiered structure that's an overhead gantry system that can support you in 3 different levels, depending on your needs, because those needs can fluctuate both with age and degenerative diseases.
And you talk about because it's fascinating, because as you're talking about the youth, we at PrimeSpan are also focused, as we are focused on the older adult, we're also very focused on building up our intern teams because we believe that the younger generation, that's where you want to start educating people.
Yeah.
And so we have an intern team. A good amount of them are coming from UCLA, very bright kids.
Of course.
And they're leading projects to expand the internship program, so then we can reach more kids to be mentored. And that's one thing that we at PrimeSpan are constantly doing, mentoring. It is that, and you'll be surprised that there's actually, some people will say that there's actually very few people that are interested in mentoring people lately. We feel fortunate that we have that ability and bandwidth and the space to do it. And so to me, I'm that, because it's so that we have so many when it comes to what we're trying to do in helping people.
Well, I think it's a demand that is bottomless. So I'm thrilled and I'm really excited. And I have to ask, are you actually connecting your interns with your PrimeSpan community? Or are you mentoring them all yourselves?
Our mentoring, yes. So it's both goals. It's both
Good.
of them are
Good.
both. Because that function of having a generational, cross-generational interaction is very important. It gives purpose for all the adults, but for a younger person, it gives them an ability to get mentored.
Yeah.
But for us, the exposure, giving an opportunity for a young person to get exposed in this field, in this work, is a huge opportunity, because now you're creating a ripple effect that there's more younger people who sees if you're talking about making change, you want to approach it from the younger generation, so it stops there if there's an actual problem. So so many parallels in what we're doing.
Yes, it is. It's wonderful. It's very exciting. And hats off to you. You two are doing an amazing job. I'm so in awe about the number of hours and all the time that you spend in your organization. That's fantastic.
Yes. And I want to ask your opinion here. If you talked about professionals, but if you will tell a professional, how can professionals contribute in nonprofit after leaving a full-time work? What's your opinion about pivoting? Because then sometimes that's what people lean towards to typically after they exit their professional world. But sometimes they hesitate, and there's more reason to it. What would be advice, and what would be your typical step for people to get into that route?
Well, I first like to identify if they have a particular area that excites or interests them that had nothing to do with their career. Something that is a hobby or an interest, and if they're not clear on that, there are amazing organizations right now that will help you do volunteer activities for a few hours one time. You don't have to go all in choosing an organization. You can do a sampler of, let's go work with this organization and see if I like the people and what they're doing. I find that is a great way to figure out at least an area where you want to start making a larger impact. There's also this alarming, I don't know if it's positive, I'm on the fence about this, that people want to start their own nonprofit. And I have found more often than not, it's a vanity exercise. They want a foundation in their name just to make themselves feel better. And it's like, no, that's not what this should be about. It should really be about service and giving back to the world. We were raised, and my mom constantly said, and my dad enforced it in actions, that you need to leave the world a better place than when you came into it. And so that expectation has been on the table since I was a child. And I have volunteered my entire life, almost always. Even when I was in law school, there was a YMCA next to the law firm where I worked full time while I went to law school. And on Thursdays, I would go and help the kids there. They had 2 floors of efficiency apartments in Seattle at this YMCA that were for kids that had fallen out of the foster care system and were homeless. And they got this tiny little dorm room kind of apartment. And on Thursday nights, they brought together a lot of people. And I was one of them. And I would help them apply for schools or scholarships or trade schools or jobs, just because the application process is something brand new to an 18-year-old.
Beautiful. Beautiful way.
So there are so many ways that any kind of skills. And in fact, if people are unsure about how to volunteer and they have limited physical capacity, there are a myriad of choices of online volunteer. The Smithsonian needs people to help catalog artifacts. There is, I think it's Gideon, they're scanning ancient books, and those need into ebooks, and they do all the scanning, but they need to be proofread because scanning is imperfect in imperfect print. And so people need to go through pages and correct them. Wikipedia is always looking for editors. It's a fun little task, and you can pick it up and put it down. It's on your own timeline. They're not high pressure once you're involved. There are so many ways that you can get engaged. You can read to the blind. There are just all of these wonderful things you can do through your computer in your own home. There really is no excuse to not giving back.
No, you're absolutely correct, because a lot of the time people, especially nowadays, you're giving real good example of there's almost no excuse not to have an opportunity to do it. And I would love to see catalog of ancient documents, ancient texts. I would love that.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting and it's interesting. And what I can't get over is how many times I run into people that say, I'm so bored in retirement. And I give them things. I have this little booklet that I will send you the link for that your listeners can download. And it's called 30 Days to Joy. And it is tiny little things that you can do every day that are interesting and fun. Because if you want something done, ask a busy person. And that's why it really concerns me that so many retired people say I'm bored, but they won't take the steps to get unbored.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So I have a ton of things to get people unbored.
Which leads me to I want to ask you this, because most of our listeners are either family members or an actual 55-year-old. Sometimes they're family members, sometimes younger. But imagining someone listening to this conversation around 60 years old, probably has spent decades in a demanding career and hopes to retire within the next 3 to 5 years. And they are not they are financially preparing but have not designed their daily life? Where should they begin?
They should begin by acknowledging that's a bad idea, not to have thought about what they want their life to be, because their life will fill up. It'll just fill up with whatever they stumble on, as opposed to deciding intentionally and designing and building it to be something that's going to be fulfilling and gratifying and sustainable and adaptable. So if they are interested, I will provide you the link to my book. It's available at Amazon and other online booksellers. It's a low cost, low risk way to start thinking and planning. It's a fun little workbook that you get to write in, like when you were in elementary school. It's fill in the blank. This isn't hours of journaling and every week meeting. It's really a do-it-yourself. You can do this in the privacy of your own home. Nobody ever has to look at the workbook. It's really just for you to do some thinking about what is it I want to do with the rest of my life.
Ray, I know you have some questions in mind.
Thank you, Joanne, for sharing so much about the Alzheimer's Association. And I think our listeners will have a lot to take away from this episode. I think we all know someone who's been impacted by the disease, and I hope that people will take advantage of the resources that you have available. So I'll share what we have going on at PrimeSpan. We have a few updates, so bear with me here. Thank you, everyone, for listening in on this episode. If you've enjoyed this conversation and want to stay connected, follow us on social media at primespan.life to see what we're building next, and join us at our PrimeSpan Community Facebook group. We also encourage you to listen in on our previous guest episodes so you can hear more of our wonderful guests like Joanne to capture more insights on wellness, prevention, and living well. So we have some updates on our membership options. We have restructured our pricing model since the beginning of this month in August to ensure that the tools for healthy longevity are within reach for everyone. Our core
We're pushing the dialogue, and that's all it takes. It'll hit critical mass. And I love you're attacking it at both ends of the spectrum, the young ones and the older ones. But yeah, I think first thing that people need to acknowledge is that there is an alternative. There's a better alternative than just accepting what retirement is selling of just rest, just take a vacation, just do nothing. Yeah.
And we're in this portion of our podcast where most of our guests started having, this was an experimental couple episodes back, but then a lot of our guests started liking it. It's called the rapid fire round.
Oh, I love this. It's fun.
And so typically in this section, I typically ask you a question. You can answer it by a word, by a sentence, up to you. But what I'll do is I'll give you rapid fire questions, and we'll move through the questions.
Sounds good.
Okay, first question I have here. Retirement should be blank. Not a common word used.
SAT word. Yes.
Yes.
Look it up.
Retirement or preferment?
Preferment.
There you go. One question to answer before leaving a career.
Did I do everything I could?
One thing retirement planning overlooks.
Lifestyle choices.
One part of work worth preserving.
The joy of accomplishment.
One part of worth releasing.
Releasing. The burden of somebody else's expectations.
Busy or fulfilled?
Fulfilled.
Okay. One way to build purpose.
Aligning what you do every day with your values, what you prioritize.
One way to build a community.
Start talking to people that you don't know and ask what they do with their spare time.
One thing adults should become beginners at.
Making mistakes.
One lesson from the Social Security Administration.
Ooh. Don't retire. It's bad. It's not good for your health.
One lesson from cannabis law.
Trust but verify.
I was expecting you to say wear bulletproof vests.
That's the same thing in my world.
One lesson from nonprofit leadership.
People often have a very different idea of what their roles are than what they actually should be. You're there to serve the constituents, not
Mhm.
each other. Board members get too caught up in status. You're there to serve. It's a service you're providing to the people that the charity is to benefit.
I love that. One lesson from cacao farming.
Ah, patience.
I have two more.
Okay.
Actually, three more. This is
Okay.
one last three true questions. One thing accomplished women should stop apologizing for.
Everything. Women apologize way too much.
One belief about aging we should retire.
That mortality is it colors everything you do in retirement. You should let go of your fear of dying and free yourself up to live.
That's such a deep advice. I love that. What does living better, longer mean to you?
Quality longevity means getting up every morning and being passionate and excited about what that day holds, even if you're not sure what you're doing half of the day.
Excellent. And those are all the rapid fire questions. Bravo. Ray, I want to give you the time to share what's going on in the PrimeSpan world, and then you could pass it along to Anne.
Thank you, Anne. So I'll read a little bit about what we're doing here at PrimeSpan. For everyone, we truly appreciate you spending your time with us today and listening to Anne's story. If this conversation resonated with you, let's keep it going and follow us on social media at primespan.life to see what we're developing next, or join the discussions we're having in our PrimeSpan community Facebook group. We also invite you to explore our library of past episodes where you'll find deep dives into wellness, preventative health, and strategies for a well-lived life. We have some amazing guests like Anne that have a lot of perspective to share. Our team has some exciting news to share. Starting this past month in August, we reimagined our pricing structure. PrimeSpan has a new core membership price that's at $9.99 per month. And if you're looking to have an accountability partner, we have our longevity build coaches, and we have some bundle packages for you to take advantage of these private sessions with our coaches. At our core, we believe that financial hurdles shouldn't stand in the way of your health, and we're thrilled to open up these resources for our community. If you've ever felt overwhelmed trying to find a service provider you can actually trust, whether it's a physical therapist or a technical expert, you'll understand why we built the PrimeSpan Approved Business Directory. This isn't just a list of ads, it is a meticulously vetted network of local professionals. Each partner is evaluated to ensure they have transparent pricing and, most importantly, treat our community with patience and respect. We are currently featuring trusted providers in sleep, fitness, nutrition, and care, with new partners joining us weekly. For our listeners, navigate with confidence to our directory, looking at our website or show notes. And if you're a business owner and run a high-quality service or know a professional who should be recognized, please visit our website for more information on our bidding process. A few more updates for you. Don't miss your chance to register for our upcoming August masterclass, which is actually going to be the end of this month. Can you really prevent dementia? What the latest research says and what you can do to protect your brain health. This session will provide you with actionable science-backed steps to safeguard your cognitive future. Reserve your spot today and visit us on our website. Lastly, if you're interested to become a PrimeSpan Build Coach, we are calling on purpose-driven professionals to join our network as a PrimeSpan certified healthy longevity professional. Their certification trains you in the build method at PrimeSpan, our proprietary non-clinical framework designed to help adults establish lifestyle structure, discover new purpose, and maintain their independence. So this program offers a complete professional development experience, and if you're ready to help others live more confident and engaged lives, visit us at primespan.life or reach out to us at coaching@primespan.life to request more information about the enrollment details.
That's amazing.
Thank you. And can you share with our listeners where they can find you and where they can purchase your books, how they can get in contact with you about preferment?
Sure. I'll follow up with all of those links as well. But for the quickest way to find me is at Rarified Life, RARIFIEDLIFE.com. Thank you for having me. This was fun. And it is exciting. And I was sincere about finding some way to collaborate. I think it is fantastic, the approach that you're taking in a very clinical and community-oriented outreach.
And anytime that you'd love to collaborate, we're here to work with you, and love everything that you're doing in all avenue. We're one of the best way that we were able to find people that are in the same mindset is through the podcast. So having you here today is just an amazing, it makes an amazing Sunday.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yes. We hope to see you in person in Hawaii. And that's there you go. To all of our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being here today. Until next time, have a good day.
Thank you for spending time with us. If today's conversation gave you clarity or steadiness, take that with you. We release new episodes weekly. Follow the PrimeSpan Podcast on Apple Podcasts so you don't miss what's next. Until next time, take care of yourself and keep living well.